Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the upper body and how it reacts to the lower body. So let's get started. So there's a couple of points I want to make here in regards to the influences of your upper body from your lower body. One is that your core and your hip flexors are connected between these two segments. So the idea is anytime that the lower body is moving in one direction, those things start pulling on the upper body. So if I create a really long block stride length like this, I can feel there's tension through here, through my hip flexor, and now a little bit more through my core. It's actually pulling me in a forward direction, which is actually, in this particular case, I'm getting pulled down. When we're throwing the javelin, we're trying to redirect all this force or this energy up into the flight line of our throw. And so if our upper bodies are getting pulled on the way down, then it's harder for us to convert that energy to a high point through that flight line of the javelin. So if all we do is shorten up our stride, bring that right knee underneath of our bodies a little bit, now I don't feel that tension until I get right about here. And I'm not a super flexible person, so other people might actually be able to get into a longer position. But for me, I can feel just from about right here, I can feel tension through that hip. I feel a little bit of tension through the core. If I put my arm up like I'm throwing, I can feel tension now moving up and across the shoulder. So the idea is as my hip starts to turn in towards that direction of the target, I'm now getting pulled with my upper body in the direction of the throw. All right, I want to show you a little something that you can try at home just to kind of demonstrate how this tension of the body feels and kind of, give you an idea of some of the adjustments you can make to kind of change the feeling of it. So start off in a lunge, pretty deep lunge. Knee over heel, and then the foot extended all the way back. And what I want you to do is I just want you to lean back into this position here and see how far back you can go and where you're feeling tension. You should be feeling tension right through here, through that hip flexor area, maybe a little bit in the core. Find that tension and then change that by leaning back forward, okay? And if you notice, tension goes away here, tension goes away here. Same thing, we'll go back again as far as we can go. And this time, I'm going to take my back foot and I'm going to bring it forward. And now you can feel the tension completely changed. So here, lots of tension. Here, not really much tension. It's the same idea now as we're moving into that block position. So now, instead of being in a deep lunge this way, we're going to be in more of a blocked position. But we're going to extend our leg back here. And then I want you to go through that same process. Reach back in this position here, and again, I can feel tension all the way through here. I can also feel it through here in my core. And instead, now I'm going to shorten up that block leg, drop the knee down, and do the same thing. And you can tell that you can move farther back, still finding tension here in the core, but now your spinal lean is significantly farther. So how do we get this stuff to work? Well, I like to do progression drills. Progression drills allows me to start off with something that's very basic and simple, and then add some levels of complexity and hopefully get us closer and closer to our ultimate goal. So in order for me to at least feel like I'm running into a block where I've got some impact on the left leg and the upper body is reacting to that upper body or that block, I'm going to open up my hips and my shoulders just a little bit here, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to move directly into that block. And do I feel like I'm getting a slight hit? Do I feel like the upper body is reacting to that lower body? And I can feel there's a jarring motion here into my lower body, and my upper body naturally moves forward into it. So that's the first thing, is at least capture a block, feel like the upper body is getting, responding to it. The second is, and this is the important part, the second is creating that tension in your hip and your core prior to taking impact of that block. The reason for that is that once we hit the block, the upper body is going to naturally transition forward. We're trying to actually accelerate that. So that means we can't wait for tension to be gathered. That means we can't run into the block and be back this way. We need to run into the block and be in a position here where the hip is under tension, so that as soon as we impact the block, the upper body gets accelerated into the throw. So the next phase of this drill is to set up, and we're going to create some artificial tension here. So I'm going to extend my hip just a little bit, okay? I'm gonna rock back, I'm gonna run into that block and feel like that tension and then that reaction are taking place in the correct order. So tension first, reaction second, okay? So creating a little bit of tension here. I'm just gonna push off, feel like I got an impact, and you can feel immediately tension taking me into an upper body turn. So again, creating tension here, rocking back, feeling tension, and reacting to it. The next phase of this progression is simply adding a little impulse or a little crossover here. So the idea is, and this is a little bit harder, the idea is be in a position when you land on that right foot, so the hip is creating tension, pulling me into the block. Block takes place, my upper body is again reacting to that block. So I'm gonna set up, create a little bit of tension through here. I can feel it already through my core. I'm gonna hit a little bit of a crossover here. And I can feel immediately, as soon as I land here, I can feel the hip is starting to extend, and then the upper body is gonna react to it. Again, one of the things you should not be doing in this process is allowing the hips to take you back this way. The hip needs to create tension that the upper body follows. So you don't want to do a reverse hinge, having the hips come up underneath of you and hurt yourself in the back. So I'm creating a little bit of tension, artificial tension here. I can feel there's hip is starting to move just a little bit of a crossover, more tension, upper body is responding. A little bit of tension, and I can feel it immediately. Automatically pulls me into that throw. And the idea is block, upper body reacts. Now let's talk about two common mistakes with this. First common mistake, and again, you can find probably more detail on my website or even on my coaching channel on YouTube, and that is a soft left leg. A lot of people will come into the block and they'll bend that left knee, and then they have to either allow that energy to flow down through the lower half, or they stiffen it up at the last second and they get sort of a deflection that's more straight up instead of, you know, hinging over the top. So we want to try and hold a strong left leg so the upper body has some sort of leverage to get over and deflect up into the flight line. The second, and this is an important one, and that is your right leg, when you land from that impulse or that little crossover, you need that right leg to be pointed in a forward direction, and the knee needs to be underneath of you. If you land from that impulse and you land here, your upper body is going to drift into the block, and the lower body is going to be, or at least this right hip is going to be late. The upper body is going to react to the block, and you will have missed out on all of that tension that you could have generated from the hip and through the core. So we need to try and get right foot forward, especially here as we land from that impulse. You want to get into that position where that hip is already moving you into the block, accelerating you into the block, because then you get an immediate deflection into the throw. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks again for watching. More information on our website and a new online class. Until I see you next time, have fun and throw far.